Hi, I'm Shandy Chernow, and welcome to Food Allergies. You work in hospitality, right? So this is a critical topic for you to know about. Food allergies are serious, and for some people can be a matter of life and death. Your knowledge and the decisions that you make at work every day can either cause or prevent someone from having a food allergic reaction. Over the lessons in this course, I'm going to help you increase your knowledge and equip you with the information that you need to help keep your customers with food allergies as safe as possible. You'll learn what food allergies are, what a reaction might look like, and what to do in the case that one occurs. And of course, most importantly, what you can do in your venue every day to keep your guests as safe as possible. So join me in the next lesson now, and let's get started. In this lesson, we'll go through some of the most fundamental things about allergies and what you need to know if you work with food, including what a food allergy is and what can cause reactions. According to the World Allergy Organization, as much as 10% of the population is vulnerable to food allergic reactions. So what is a food allergy? A food allergic reaction occurs when the body's immune system attacks a protein in a food that they've ingested. That doesn't mean that you're only allergic to proteins. When we talk about proteins in food, that's just a part of the food that exists in any kind of food that you ingest. Any person can become allergic to any food at any time. There are over 170 different foods that have been known to cause food allergic reactions. You may hear in your region of the world about a particularly common allergy, like peanuts, milk, wheat, celery, rice, just to name a few. But people can be allergic to literally any food or spice or herb. Anything that you ingest can be the cause of a food allergic reaction. Some people are allergic to more than one food. In fact, 30% of children who have food allergies have more than one. Once you have one food allergy, it's very common to have a second or third food begin to affect you. Food allergies have no cure, unfortunately. The only way to prevent a food allergic reaction is to completely avoid the food that you're allergic to. In hospitality, we have to help our food allergic customers as best we can to avoid the food that they're allergic to so that we can help them prevent having a reaction. The smallest amount of a food can cause a food allergic reaction. Sometimes people think that you need to eat an entire plate of a food in order to have a reaction, or a whole bite. In reality, the smallest amount of food can cause a life-threatening food allergic reaction. As you can see here, in comparison to this small coin, a very minuscule amount of flour is enough to cause an anaphylactic or life-threatening reaction. Every food allergic reaction is unpredictable from the food allergic reactions of the past. So even if you've only had a very small or minor reaction in the past, you may have a very severe or life-threatening reaction in the future. The same can be true in reverse. No past reaction predicts the severity of a future reaction. Food allergies may start in childhood, or they can start in adulthood as well. 15% of people who have food allergic reactions got their first reaction in adulthood. Sometimes children who are food allergic grow out of their food allergies. In the US alone, every 3 minutes, there's an emergency hospital visit triggered by a severe food allergic reaction. 30% of food allergic reactions are to foods that the person did not know that they were allergic to previously. That doesn't mean that anybody has done anything wrong, but we need to do our best in order to prevent the 70% of food allergic reactions that happen to foods that were known allergies for that person. Food allergies can affect any demographic, any age, any gender, any ethnicity. There is no cure. The only cure that we have is prevention and avoiding the food that the person is allergic to. It's important to note, especially in the hospitality industry, that 25% of people who have food allergies never go out to eat because they either don't feel safe or that they'll be listened to. This is a huge missed opportunity for food service and hospitality. Regardless of whether a guest has a food allergy or intolerance, it's important that we treat them with empathy and respect. I want you to go and do a bit of your own research and find out what percentage of the population where you live suffers from food allergies. And the 3 things I want you to remember from this lesson are: A food allergy is when a person's immune system overreacts to the proteins in food. The smallest amount of a food can cause a food allergic reaction. And worldwide, more than 170 different foods have been known to cause food allergic reactions. In this lesson, I'll take you through the common symptoms of a food allergic reaction. You don't need to be a doctor to work in hospitality, but knowing how to recognize the symptoms of an allergic reaction can help you quickly come to the aid of any guest who may need your help. Food allergic reactions can cause symptoms that range from mild to severe. The most severe form of a food allergic reaction is a life-threatening reaction called anaphylaxis. Symptoms from a food allergy can come on from virtually instantaneously to 12 hours after the ingestion of the food. A reaction that a guest may have had in the past doesn't necessarily predict the reaction that they're going to have in the future. Their reaction could be wildly different from any reaction they've had before. Reactions can also be unpredictable. A reaction may start out with some mild symptoms and progress to have more severe symptoms over time. We want to make sure that we're calling emergency services to keep the guest as safe as possible and to make sure that they're under observation for the time period that they need to be. The symptoms of an allergic reaction can affect many systems within the body, including the skin, your gastrointestinal tract, your respiratory tract, and in most severe cases, your cardiovascular system. Anaphylaxis is a potentially life-threatening food allergic reaction. It can come on very quickly, anywhere from a couple of minutes to several hours after the ingestion of the food. To identify a potential anaphylactic reaction, you're looking for any one of the following severe symptoms: shortness of breath, wheezing or repetitive cough, drop in blood pressure or feeling weak, faint, or passing out, loss of consciousness, chest pain, pale, blue, faint, weak pulse or dizzy, tight throat, hoarse, trouble breathing or swallowing, significant swelling of the tongue or lips, many hives over the body or widespread redness, repetitive vomiting or severe diarrhea, overwhelming feeling of anxiety, confusion, despair, or doom, or more than one of the following mild symptoms: itchy runny nose or sneezing, itchy mouth or ear canal, a few hives or mild itching, mild nausea and discomfort, slight dry cough, or an odd taste in your mouth. It's imperative that at the first indication of a food allergic reaction, that the only course of action is that we assume that the customer has ingested a food that they're allergic to. Have you ever experienced or witnessed a food allergic reaction? I hope you haven't. But if you have, what kind of symptoms did you experience or see, and how did that impact you? Make sure you remember: call emergency services at the first indication of a food allergic reaction. Reactions can range from mild to severe, including the potentially life-threatening condition anaphylaxis. Symptoms typically appear within minutes to several hours after eating the food to which there's an allergy, and reactions can be unpredictable. Do you have a food allergy yourself? If so, what we're about to go through may already resonate with you. If not, this lesson will provide some insight into what having your food contaminated might be like. When we're discussing what's safe for a customer who has food allergies, it's very important to take into consideration all of the things that may be in that menu item. So what's in a dish? You can't just look at the ingredients that go directly into the dish. all of those components are very likely to have additional ingredients inside of them. Sometimes there's another layer below that, and another layer below that. And we need to go down all the way till the end of the list of ingredients for all of the components that are in a dish. We also need to look at everything that might come into contact with the dish that we're preparing for our guest. So that's every single ingredient and every single ingredient of those ingredients for the other menu items that might come in contact with the dish that we're considering. So let's do an exercise in downline ingredients. Ingredients that are further down in the list or inside of a component of a dish. Let's say, for example, that you work at a steakhouse. You have a customer who comes in who has a fish allergy. You may think that a steak would be safe for your customer with their fish allergy. However, it's possible that you're not taking into consideration all of the components and ingredients in the original marinade for that steak. For example, oftentimes, Worcestershire sauce is used in a marinade for steaks. And there's quite a few brands of Worcestershire sauce that include anchovies in their ingredients list. So without careful examination of every single ingredient, of every single component in a dish, you may end up serving a customer who has a fish allergy a steak that actually includes fish. Continuing with the same example of the steakhouse and the customer with the fish allergy, it's also possible that we have a cross-contamination problem on the grill. Oftentimes, fish and/or shellfish are also grilled on the same grill that the steak may be prepared on. We may need to make sure that we're cooking that steak in a clean pan or recommending a different item to that guest. To use another example, to show how important contamination of an allergen is to a food allergic customer, let's just say that you're at a restaurant dining. You've ordered a chicken salad. Your salad comes out, it looks great. But there's a problem. All of the chicken that's on the salad is raw. I don't mean undercooked. I mean raw chicken. You complain about your chicken salad. The server removes the chicken and brings the same salad back to you. Are you going to eat that? It's still contaminated by the raw chicken that was removed. Separation of ingredients is important, and why I used the raw chicken as an example. We all understand how vital it is to not have raw chicken come into contact with any other ingredients for our customers. To a food allergic guest, everything that they have an allergy to is equivalent to raw chicken. If a food allergic guest has an allergy to wheat, and we accidentally add croutons to that person's salad, it's imperative that we remake the salad from the beginning rather than just removing the croutons from the salad. The smallest amount of that wheat can cause a severe reaction for that guest. By virtue of removing the croutons from the salad, we haven't solved the problem. That salad is still contaminated by the croutons that were originally on there. A new salad needs to be made in order to keep that guest safe and prevent a potentially life-threatening anaphylactic reaction. During both prep and service, diligence is imperative in keeping all of your ingredients separate and cleaning all of your utensils and surfaces in between those ingredients. I want you to keep in mind these three analogies, the raw chicken, the steak, and the croutons, and remember them the next time that you're preparing or serving food for a food allergic guest in your venue. And to wrap up, remember, your ingredients have ingredients, or they may come into contact with other ingredients during prep. To a customer with food allergies, everything is raw chicken. And removing an item from a dish does not make that dish safe to eat. It will still be contaminated. In this lesson, I'll give you tips and tricks on how to handle and serve a guest who comes in and tells you that they have a food allergy. When you have a customer in your venue who has a food allergy, the first thing that I would like to implore upon you is to be kind and compassionate to that person. Imagine if it was you, or a friend, or a family member of yours. How would you like to be treated, or how would you like your friend to be treated? People who have food allergies don't choose to have food allergies, and oftentimes are made to feel less than welcome in restaurants and hotels and other food service venues. We want to make sure, at our core, that we're treating everyone with excellent service and making them feel as welcome and comfortable and safe as possible. When a customer has a food allergy, always assume that they're being honest with you. We all know the anecdotal stories of people who have come in and said that they had a food allergy and they really just didn't like the food. However, we want to make sure that every single allergy or intolerance that's shared with us during service is taken seriously. You have to assume that they've got the allergy, and you have to assume that there's the possibility of a severe reaction from that food allergy. If you always make that assumption, you're going to keep not just your customers as safe as possible, but also you and your workplace. You can ask as many questions as you'd like to clarify and confirm information about the allergy that your customer has shared with you. Things like, what's included in dairy? Is butter dairy? Could you have milk? Could you have yogurt? Those types of questions are great, and you want to make sure that you get as much information as possible so that you can keep your customer as safe as possible. However, you don't want to ask questions about the severity or if they really have it or how bad is it. In many areas of the world, there's legislation around disabilities that may include protections for food allergic customers. So we can't ask questions like, how bad is it? Because that leaves the impression, how much do we need to care about this? So ask clarifying and confirming, but not about severity. Make sure that you're making your customer feel welcome and safe. There's always going to be what I like to call the risk takers or the daredevils. Someone who says, I have an allergy. Let's keep with the dairy example. I have a dairy allergy and I can't have cheese on my cheeseburger. But when it comes time for dessert, they want some ice cream or a milkshake. What do you do with that type of customer? In my opinion, you want to take a hard line and don't let them take risks on your watch. What happens if they have a reaction to it? If they didn't have a severe allergy, they shouldn't be using that vocabulary. The next time that they go into a restaurant, perhaps they won't mislead their server. But during this visit, don't let them have whatever it is that they said that they were allergic to. Finally, when you have a customer who has food allergies, you need to make sure that you can make reasonable accommodations for them. So if somebody is allergic to something, we're not just offering, carrot sticks or raw vegetables. We want to make sure that we're offering some set of options that leaves them with a reasonable set of choices that they can make to have just as good of a dining experience as everyone that they're with and all of your other customers. Depending on where you live in the world, there may be different rules and regulations governing how you can and should treat guests who have food allergies. I encourage you to do some research on your own so that you can figure out what it is that's applicable where it is that you live. When any customer is ready to place their order, if they haven't already informed you of a food allergy, please ask. Sometimes guests don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing their food allergies with you, and you always want to make sure that you capture any information around food allergies or intolerances that your guests may have. Also, make sure that you note their allergy or intolerance in the point-of-sale system or with the ticket. That way you're communicating with your manager, your chef, and everyone in the kitchen that there is a food allergy that needs to be taken into consideration for this particular table. If the customer indicates, for example, that they have a peanut allergy and then returns suggesting that they have had a reaction to something else like dairy, having this documentation helps to protect the venue. If you need to advise a customer on what they can eat, please watch one of my other lessons on choosing the best food options for guests with food allergies. It's important to note the food allergies down on the ticket when you take the order, to enter them into the point-of-sale system, and if the guest orders more than one thing, please make sure that the allergies are noted with each item that they've ordered. The venue should keep the allergy information that's been noted for future use, just in case the customer does come back having indicated a food allergic reaction. Importantly, limit the number of people who are involved with cooking and handling the dish for your food allergic customer. Verify and confirm all information and ingredients with someone in back of house. And make sure that you're flagging all of your food allergic guests' plates with a purple flag or some other indication that you use in your venue. If an item is returned to the kitchen for a problem with a food allergy, it's very important that we don't try to remove the allergen to make the dish safe. That dish must be refired for that particular customer. If you try to remove the allergen, that dish is still contaminated and not safe for that customer to consume. You've heard my tips, but there are 3 things that I want you to remember and do every single time you have a customer who has a food allergy, and they are these. Always be kind, understanding, and empathetic. Always take it seriously. Treat every single food allergic customer as though their allergy is life-threatening. And always be thorough. Ask questions and communicate the information to the kitchen and anyone else who will be handling that dish. When a guest tells you that they have a food allergy, they're looking to you for advice and guidance on what the best options are for them to order. In this lesson, I'll give you my guidelines to help you figure out what the safest options are. When you're trying to figure out what it is that a guest can safely order, there's really 2 different ways that we're going to talk about this. If you have a complete ingredients list, for example, if you work in a quick serve restaurant, you may have an ingredients label for something that your customer is trying to eat or order. While you're looking at the ingredients label, there's some information to keep in mind. You've got the list of ingredients, and there may or may not be the same set of words that your customer is using. You also have a potential may contains warning. And in addition to that, there are some voluntary warnings like processed in a facility with. So how do you make sense of all of those things? In the ingredients list, you may have a variety of different words that are indicative of an allergy that your customer may have. For example, if your customer has a dairy allergy, you may see words on the label that don't say dairy. They may say butter, cream, sour cream, milk, or a variety of other options, none of which someone with a dairy allergy can have. If you have an ingredients label like that, you may want to show the ingredients label to your customer so that you can determine together if that particular item may be safe. There are 2 sets of warnings that you may see on a label. One is the may contains warning. You may also see a voluntary warning that says something along the lines of processed in a facility with, or processed on shared lines with, or processed on shared equipment with. That means that it may be possible that the allergen is included in the food that you're reading the label for. It also means that it may not be. Again, you'll want to show these labels to your customer so that you can make sure that they're ordering to their comfort level. It's possible that you don't have a complete ingredient label for every menu item that your customer may want to order. In this case, we need to take a look at every component that goes into a dish or a menu item and all of the ingredients of those components. For example, you may have a Caesar dressing marinated chicken and a Caesar salad. In both cases, we'll need to take a look at that component, which is the Caesar salad dressing. Frequently, Caesar salad dressings include anchovies as an ingredient, which you may not think of if someone comes in with a fish allergy wanting to order your Caesar chicken. The other example with the marinated chicken, you may use that same Caesar dressing in the marinated chicken, and we may have that same problem with the anchovies if a customer had a fish allergy. It's very important to go ahead and look at the ingredients of every single component of every single dish that you have on the menu. If you have a French fry only fryer, then you don't have to worry about a shrimp allergy with your French fries. However, if everything goes into the same fryer, or there's multiple fryers but there's no delineation, you need to make sure that there's nothing in the fryer that could potentially harm your guest who has whatever allergy it is that they've shared with you. The same thing is true for grill tops. Although in grill tops, sometimes it's easier because we can always cook things in a clean pan if that's available. So if you're cooking shrimp on the grill top and hamburgers on the grill top, someone who has a shellfish or a shrimp allergy can't order the hamburger unless we have a different mechanism to cook that hamburger. A particularly interesting place for cross-contamination is a salad bar. You may not think of that one since there's no cooking going on over there, but I like to talk about the flyovers that happen in salad bars. So if you pick up some cheese from one bucket and then move it over to the salad, chances are it's gone over several other buckets of different ingredients. it's possible that those other buckets are now contaminated by the cheese. When making a salad from the salad bar, please make sure that you're using individualized utensils like tongs and spoons for each ingredient. That way you're going to minimize cross-contamination as you're not using the same utensil in multiple buckets of different ingredients. When you have a food allergic customer, communication is key in making sure that they're able to dine safely at your venue. Make sure that you're communicating all of their allergies and their requests to someone in the back of house before you make any suggestions as to what it is that may be safe for them to eat. Don't use words like, "that should be safe," or "you should be okay with that." Always go back and make sure that your responses and your recommendations are fact-based and are as accurate as possible, and that you've had a chance to speak with the chef before communicating with the customer. Never suggest something to your customer unless you're sure. Always be honest with them and always check with the chef. Given that every venue works a little bit differently, I'd like you to go find out what the process is at your venue so that when you have a food allergy customer, you know exactly how to find out what the ingredients are in every component in every dish on the menu. And finally, my 3 key takeaways for this lesson are: always involve the chef or the manager in conversations to determine whether a dish is suitable. Don't forget to consider contamination from packaged ingredients and from cooking procedures. And always be honest in what you relay back to a customer. If you don't know, tell them. In this lesson, I'll give you some of my best practice tips on how you can help prevent cross-contamination in your back-of-house area. When preparing food for any customer, but especially a customer who has food allergies, we want to make sure that every surface, every utensil, and every hand is being cleaned in such a way that we're removing all of the food proteins, not just sanitizing them. The reason that we want to make sure that we're removing all of the food proteins, not just sanitizing them, is if you disinfect an almond, as an example, it's still an almond. It might be a cleaner almond, but to somebody who has a food allergy, that almond is still going to cause a potentially life-threatening reaction. In between the preparation of every menu item, please make sure that you're cleaning and sanitizing all of your surfaces, including countertops, cutting boards, and flat tops or grills. Remember, if a mistake is made, you must start over and remake the meal. One of the best ways to prevent cross-contamination in the back of house is to color code your kitchen. Some examples of color coding in the kitchen that you may already be familiar with are red for raw meat and blue for fish. There's also a color for food allergies, and that's purple. Some kitchens have an entire station dedicated to meals that are prepared for food allergy guests, and all of the utensils and surfaces in that area are purple. Here are some examples of purple utensils and cutting boards and knives. Be sure to check out the downloadable resource attached to this lesson for further information about color coding your kitchen. If there isn't a dedicated station for food allergies, there are additional steps that you can take. For example, changing your gloves and utensils and cleaning everything in between the preparation of the food allergy person's meal and any other preparation that's happening on that station. If your venue is using purple stickers or flags or some other indication on the plates, you can leave them on all the way out to the delivery to the customer. That way the guest knows that additional consideration has been taken for their order, and it will make them feel safer and more welcome. What can you do in your venue to make the back-of-house area more allergy-friendly? Don't forget, cleanliness and sanitation are key for preventing cross-contamination. Color coding equipment and areas with purple indicates that they're for use with allergy orders only. And always minimize the number of people that handle a dish being prepared for a food allergic customer. In this lesson, I'll share some tips about how you can help prevent cross-contamination from happening in your front-of-house areas. The best way to prevent cross-contamination in your front of house is to make sure that everything is cleaned, not just sanitized. As you're cleaning surfaces, make sure that you're doing it in a way such as using hot soapy water to actually remove any food remnants that are remaining on those surfaces. All surfaces that customers can come into contact with should be cleaned as frequently as possible to ensure your customer's safety with regard to food allergens. Some of the surfaces to keep in mind are tables and chairs, as well as menus and any items that are left on top of the table, such as salt and pepper shakers and condiments. If you have a bar or counter where customers can eat or drink, there are some additional tips that you may want to keep in mind to make sure that your food allergy customers are safe. You can move items out of reach that are commonly left on top of bar tops, such as napkin stacks, straws, and the trays of garnishes. When they're left in reach of customers, they're easy targets for cross-contamination, and it makes keeping your food allergy customers safe a little bit more difficult. Something else you can do is to provide nut-free snacks to your customers who are drinking or dining at the bar. Given that tree nuts and peanuts are some of the most common allergens around the world, providing other snacks such as popcorn, chips, crisps, or pretzels can help prevent both cross-contamination and keep your food allergy customers that much safer. One example of how simple cross-contamination can be, if you've got peanuts as an example at the bar, your bartender is serving those peanuts to your customers and then also handling the drinks and cups that are going to other customers. Well, now all of those drinks potentially have cross-contamination for those nuts, and that may be something that you hadn't thought about as that bartender or as that customer. I've given you my tips. Take those and think about your own front-of-house practices. Is there anything that you could be doing differently to help prevent cross-contamination? And my 3 key takeaways are: good cleaning procedures are the only way to remove allergens and food remnants. Don't forget to clean items that are regularly touched by lots of people, such as menus and condiments. And move items like straws or napkins to the back of your bar or counter to minimize the number of people who touch them. In this lesson, I'll give you a straightforward process to follow in case someone is having an allergic reaction in your venue. In another lesson, we covered how to recognize the signs and symptoms of an anaphylactic allergic reaction. If you suspect someone in your venue may be having an anaphylactic allergic reaction, here's a process to follow that will ensure that you help them as much as you possibly can. First, you should alert your manager or whoever is in charge or on duty in that shift. Second, make sure that you call emergency services. Finally, follow any instructions or directions that the contact on emergency services is giving to you. That may include use of an epinephrine autoinjector, which is commonly known in many areas of the world as an EpiPen. Use of an EpiPen is the #1 way to ensure that someone can be safe after they've had an anaphylactic allergic reaction. Emergency services may have you check to see if your customer who's having the reaction is wearing a medical alert bracelet or necklace. Also, most people who have food allergies do carry EpiPens with them. Some places that you may look for the EpiPen in the event of a reaction are in their pockets or in their bag or purse. You may feel some reservation around administering epinephrine to someone. Please make sure that you listen to your emergency services contact and follow all of their instructions. Different areas of the world will have different rules and regulations around who's allowed to administer epinephrine, and your emergency services contact should be able to talk you through who's allowed to do what and when. Epinephrine is a relatively safe and harmless drug. The organizations of allergists and immunologists suggest that if there's an allergic reaction happening, it's much safer to use the drug than to risk not using it. Here are 2 examples of epinephrine autoinjectors. The one you may be most familiar with, the EpiPen, and a second one named AviQ. They're the exact same medication and the exact same instructions, just 2 different housings for the same drug. If someone's having an allergic reaction and you haven't yet called emergency services, please do so. Your contact at emergency services may have you inject an epinephrine autoinjector or an EpiPen to the person who's having the reaction. Each device will have a safety pin, generally colored either red or blue. Remove the safety pin and place the device on the outer thigh of the person having the reaction. The devices are intended to go through clothes, so there's no need to remove any clothing. You can just go ahead and inject it right through whatever they're wearing. Press hard enough where you hear a click. The click is quite audible, so you'll know if you hear it. Hold the EpiPen there for several seconds, and then after removing it, rub the area to ensure that the medication is spread through the muscles. Check to see if your venue has a policy on how to handle food allergic reactions and other first aid situations. Also, find out what your local laws and regulations are around handling these types of situations. Finally, I would highly recommend taking a formal first aid training class. And remember, always alert your manager straight away if a guest experiences an allergic reaction in your venue. Call emergency services and follow their directions. Those directions may include the use of an epinephrine autoinjector or EpiPen at the first sign of symptoms. Congratulations! You've come to the end of the food allergies course. I hope you've soaked up all of the information that we've been through and will take it back and use it to really impact your customers and help keep them safe. Having an allergy is hard and is serious, and for some people can really be a matter of life and death. Your actions and the decisions that you make have the potential to really impact someone's life. If you yourself have a food allergy, use this understanding along with what you have learned here in order to drive your vigilance in your own workplace. If you don't, I leave you with one last challenge. Choose a food to be allergic to. Try soy, or dairy, or wheat. Go to the grocery store. You'll need to read the label of every food that you want to buy. Imagine living with this vigilance every single day for the rest of your life. Then imagine the trust you have to put into other people in a venue when there's no ingredient label to read. You are your customer's ingredient label, so make sure that you're correct. Great job, and congratulations on completing the food allergies course.